Fear. It's one of the most primal emotions we have, hardwired deep in our brains to protect us from danger. Fear tells us to run from predators, avoid cliffs, and respect fire. But what if that same instinct makes you panic at the sight of buttons, or bananas, or the number 13? Welcome to the strange world of weird phobias, irrational fears that seem to make no sense, yet feel overwhelmingly real. Today we're diving into the science behind some of the weirdest phobias people actually have, and why your brain sometimes fears things that can't possibly hurt you. Let's start with one that sounds almost made up: trypophobia, the fear of small clusters of holes. Beehives, lotus pods, even bubble wrap. For people with trypophobia, just looking at these patterns can trigger anxiety, nausea, even full-blown panic attacks. And yet, there's nothing dangerous about these holes. Some researchers believe it's an evolutionary response. Certain venomous animals, like poisonous frogs or snakes, have patterns that resemble these clustered shapes. Over time, our brains may have developed an unconscious warning system. It's not the holes themselves, it's what they might represent. In other words, your brain might be mistaking a lotus seed pod for a threat, just in case. Then there's nomophobia, the fear of being without your phone. Sound ridiculous? Maybe. But studies show this is becoming incredibly common. People report anxiety, dizziness, even panic when they're separated from their smartphones. Phones have become psychological extensions of ourselves. They hold our memories, our conversations, even our identities. Losing access can feel like losing part of your own mind. Nomophobia isn't just about tech, it's about the deep human need for connection. And when that's suddenly severed, your brain reacts the same way it would to isolation or abandonment. Now, let's get a little stranger. Xanthophobia, the fear of the color yellow. Yes, a color. For some people, bright yellow tones trigger nausea or dread. It can stem from traumatic memories tied to the color, perhaps an accident involving a yellow car, or a deep childhood association. And once the brain labels a stimulus as dangerous, even irrational ones become difficult to unlink. Or how about optophobia, the fear of opening one's eyes? This is extremely rare but deeply debilitating. People with optophobia often keep their eyes closed for long periods due to overwhelming anxiety about what they might see. This phobia is sometimes linked to PTSD, where opening the eyes becomes a symbolic act of vulnerability. And then there's linonophobia, a fear of string. Yes, string. For those affected, even the sight or touch of shoelaces, thread, or yarn can induce extreme discomfort. It's believed to be rooted in early tactile experiences or trauma related to binding or restriction. Again, fear doesn't follow logic, it follows emotional memory. Let's not forget arachibutyrophobia, the fear of peanut butter sticking to the roof of your mouth. As oddly specific as it sounds, this phobia can arise from a traumatic choking experience, or from a form of obsessive-compulsive response where sticky textures cause panic. Even more abstract is geniophobia, the fear of knees, especially exposed knees. It may develop from injury trauma, body image disorders, or early life associations that were never processed. Then there's pogonophobia, a fear of beards. People with this phobia may associate facial hair with danger, uncleanliness, or lack of control. It often stems from past experiences or cultural conditioning. In children, even a scary bearded clown or teacher might leave a lifelong imprint. Pterophobia, a fear of cheese. Sounds funny, but it's very real. The smell, texture, or even appearance of cheese can trigger intense revulsion. For some, it's about food trauma. For others, it's sensory overload. Again, the brain makes the irrational feel rational. And lastly, chronophobia, the fear of time passing. This one's surprisingly common in people facing long-term confinement, like prisoners or terminal patients. The fear of time slipping away, of the unknown future, becomes paralyzing. It's not just fear, it's existential dread. So what causes phobias at the neurological level? Phobias are driven by the amygdala, a part of the brain responsible for processing fear and emotional memories. When you experience a frightening event, even one that seems minor, your amygdala records it. If something similar shows up again, your brain overreacts, thinking you're in real danger. It's not logical, it's survival. This process is called fear conditioning, and once it's in place, it can be reinforced over and over, even without new trauma. Your brain begins to associate even neutral things with danger, creating powerful responses from relatively small triggers. Phobias also involve the hippocampus, which stores memories. When these fear-related memories are triggered, the hippocampus brings them up instantly, sometimes even subconsciously, reigniting the emotional response. That's why phobias are so stubborn. They're not just psychological, they're deeply encoded in our neural wiring. Historically, phobias weren't treated as neurological disorders. They were considered madness, weakness, or even signs of spiritual possession. In the 18th and 19th centuries, phobic individuals were often locked away in asylums. It wasn't until the rise of psychoanalysis in the 20th century that phobias were seen as treatable psychological conditions. And today, with modern tools like exposure therapy, CBT, and virtual reality simulations, recovery is not only possible, it's increasingly common. So how can someone unlearn a phobia? One method is systematic desensitization. It involves exposing the person gradually to the object of fear in a safe, controlled setting. For example, someone afraid of buttons might first look at a photo, then hold one, then wear one. Over time, the brain reprograms itself, learning that the stimulus isn't a threat. And here's the deeper truth. Phobias aren't just curiosities, they're windows into how our brains protect us, often at the cost of logic. They show how emotional memory can override rational thought and how fear, when left unchecked, can become its own predator. But they also show how resilient the mind is, how, with time and the right tools, the same brain that creates fear can also dismantle it. And the list doesn't stop there. Take trypophobia, the fear of mirrors. While it may seem like a horror movie trope, for those who suffer from it, mirrors trigger real anxiety. It's often tied to self-image issues or traumatic associations. Some people even report fearing that the reflection might show something they can't explain, or something staring back that shouldn't be there. Then there's ombrophobia, the fear of rain. For most, a rainy day means staying indoors or bringing an umbrella, but for people with ombrophobia, even the sound of rainfall can induce panic. This may stem from a traumatic experience involving storms or floods, or from an overstimulated response to weather-related anxiety. And how about decidophobia, the fear of making decisions? This one goes deeper than simple indecisiveness. People with decidophobia often feel paralyzed by even basic choices, overwhelmed by the possibility of regret or making the wrong move. It's closely linked with anxiety disorders and perfectionism, and can impact everything from relationships to career paths. So the next time someone says they're afraid of belly buttons, chewing sounds, or even clocks, don't mock them. Listen, because behind every strange phobia is a human story, a memory, a wound, or a brain that's just trying to keep them safe. And that's what makes fear so strange and so deeply human. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the mind, the irrational, and the wonderfully weird world of psychology.